First round quarterback prospects for the Chicago Bears, kind of their fit with the team. First off, I think two names that are going to come off right off the board. So really there's only going to be like three names we're talking about. I don't think there's really any chance to get Zach Wilson or Trevor Lawrence, unfortunately. I'd love to think that we could, but I don't really think it's that realistic at this point. So really the Bears are looking at a series of three names. Mac Jones, which is probably the least intriguing, Justin Fields, and Trey Lance. And now there's some rumors that, Lance could go above Fields. I know that's kind of contradictory to a lot of what we've heard the entire college football season with, Justin Fields being the number 2 overall pick projected to be. But it's very possible that, some people think that the NFL isn't too intrigued with Fields as much as a lot of people think. Mac Jones, he's obviously slid up there a couple of times. Some people think that he could be the 3rd overall pick or 3rd overall quarterback. Well, what's intriguing to you about these 3 quarterbacks? Do you think that the Bears will have any shot to get any of them? Would you be excited for any of them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, who they have a real shot of getting, I'd say the real shot, probably Trey Lance. I know there's some scenarios I could see it happening where he does go above Fields, and Mac Jones. I think those are the 2 realistic options. I think Justin Fields, I still have a feeling he could be the 2nd quarterback that comes off, honestly. I mean, sometimes, especially when the first quarterback is so set in stone, and we kind of like to think that, there could be a lot of movement in and behind, and then sometimes it just ends up setting up how we thought it originally would. Justin Fields, I think I've heard there's interest from the Patriots as far as, him, that there's been a lot of talk from going on between that. I could see it. I think that if the Bears did have the opportunity to get him, I would likely have to come in a trade up, obviously, and it would just be a question of how far they have to trade up. If he ended up coming onto this Bears team, I'd be very happy. I think I just haven't really poured too much thought into it because I just don't really see it happening. And as with Trey Lance, I mean, I think that, I looked at, who could possibly be available, at least in a reasonable trade-up scenario, maybe trading up to like 10 or 12. Maybe Trey Lance is still there. I mean, that even may still be a little bit of a reach. But, with that possibility, I think that he's someone that's very exciting. I like that he's someone that's a mobile quarterback, but it doesn't depend on his mobility. I think that that's almost always kind of a key thing to look for. And as far as Mac Jones, I just never have been super stoked about him. I mean, there's no doubting that he's accurate with the football. And I won't even talk too much on the fact that, he had such a great team around him at Alabama. I think that you can only do so much faulting for that. I mean, Joe Burrow had some great, players on that offense with LSU too. And, not too many people really kind of pass that off. But I don't think you can really compare Mac Jones and Joe Burrow. I don't really think they're one in the same. And I also think that, there's a couple shortfalls in his game. A lot of people think that he has really good pocket presence. And for the most part, he does. But he is sometimes very vulnerable back there in the pocket still. And when he does make the wrong decision, it usually ends up poorly for him. In his case, it didn't happen too much, but it is, if you go on his film, he's not always perfect, as some people would lead you to believe.
All right, guys, really quickly before we continue with the show, we have to let you know that this podcast is supported by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels, and they obsess over their technology developments. They're trusted by over 2 million men worldwide, and we have an exclusive offer code for our listeners, 20% off plus free shipping using code BEARNECESSITIES, no space, at manscaped.com. Manscaped sent both Reese and I over a bunch of their tools and formulations from their Perfect Package 3.0. And guys, Manscaped is a great company. They wanted us to wait until we try the products to give you guys our honest opinion. And it is a very good product. They have no-nick technology and a little LED light, which helps you get the job done a little bit easier. Both Reese and I have really enjoyed the Lawnmower 3.0 so far, and we're looking forward to trying a lot of their other products. The underwear that they sent us in the box too has been spectacular, and if you guys are into athletics or, go to the gym frequently, highly recommend those as well. And guys, really quickly, if you use the same razor on your face as below the waist, guys, that's a little bit nasty. Try to pick up something specifically engineered for that below the waist region with the Lawnmower 3.0. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code BEARNECessities at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping using code BEARNECessities at manscaped.com. Make sure you check how to spell that in the description. That's going to support the podcast tremendously. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mac Jones, I could see him coming out and having some good success with the team. He's just not that intriguing of a player, though, because of his athletic profile, which I know a lot of people are going to point to like Tom Brady and say like, oh, look at Tom Brady. Well, he's kind of an anomaly at this point in the NFL. Do I think Mac Jones could see success? Yes. But if if I'm getting my pick at it, I would definitely prefer Trey Lance or Justin Fields for sure. Justin Fields, yeah, he has some... I think what's concerning with Justin Fields is that his bad games turn out to be pretty bad games. And you just wonder how much also, like with the history of Ohio State quarterbacks, same thing with Mac Jones, like how's that going to turn out for him? With Trey Lance, you're getting a guy that is very technically polished already. Obviously not a huge sample size out there. Has a lot of things he can work on too. And I think that he would really benefit from a situation where you rest him for an entire year, similar to Patrick Mahomes in that way, that he's kind of that, like, if this guy works out, he is going to be amazing. He is going to light the league on fire. And that's what I think Trey Lance's profile is that he has a lot of chance to be a not great quarterback, but he also has a lot of opportunity to be an amazing quarterback. And I think that he really is that boomer bust prospect. He, not in the same way that like some people try to compare him to like, Jordan Love and players like that. No, it's not even in the same hemisphere as far as what they're capable of. Their polish at this point. Trey Lance, he has a lot of polish as far as his technical ability. His throwing motion, his footwork, all very good at this point in his career. He has some flaws. He's a good processor, could get better. But the other thing that comforts me is that what they run in North Dakota State is very similar to what the Bears run. It is a West Coast variant, so that's going to put them ahead of a lot of other people already. So, man, I would be down for bringing in Trey Lance, having him rest a year, learn Nagy's system, and then, try to have him light the world on fire in 2022.
Yeah. No, it's definitely getting Trey Lance would be, I think, a gift for this Bears team, and especially give him that year to rest. And I think the same goes for Justin Fields, too. You give them a year to rest, it could be certainly very beneficial. And, not to jump the gun here, but I think if you look at any of the other quarterbacks down the board, I think, these are all players you're certainly resting. And to kind of go opposite, where you say, Trey Lance plays in a more West Coast system that's applicable to the Bears, you look at someone that's a little bit opposite, like, Kellen Mond, who's kind of knocked pretty frequently for, kind of being a system quarterback in Jimbo Fisher's system. Things seemed a little bit predictable at times. But then you look at some of the throws that he made against, some of the top teams in the SEC, specifically look at games against Alabama where he's, kind of making some tight throws that are pretty damn impressive against that quality of a defense. And I think that he's certainly a name to look out for down in the draft. He's someone that you can probably get third round or so, maybe even a little bit higher. I think his stock might be rising a little bit. Of course, I've always been a proponent of Jamie Newman, too. I think that he's someone that, certainly brings a lot of that ability to the game, ability to move out of the pocket, someone that, likes to pull down the ball and run a decent amount, which is a red flag for some people. But I think that if you play into that system where you let them sit a year, get to understand the system better, work on a little bit more of their mechanics, I think that Jamie Newman isn't an awful thrower, but, basically everyone coming out of college can have some more work on their mechanics. And usually the people more down the order, there's usually some larger concern as to why they're, not a first round grade quarterback. And I think you look at someone like Jamie Newman, you give him that year to become understand the system, and then also, just have some more technical work. And maybe not someone that is a high likelihood that he ends up being your starter next year, but these kind of, Russell Wilsons do happen. Of course, Tom Brady, I mean, very much an outlier, but that does happen to get a quarterback that quality that late in the draft. So you do have to explore your options and really do your homework on these quarterbacks, especially if the Chicago Bears. And, if they're sitting at that pick 20, they're maybe a little averse to trading up. Then, let's say they pick up someone like Christian Darrisaw and they're sitting there in the second or third round saying, okay, maybe we're gearing up to take a quarterback here. You want to make sure you're not just picking out of a hat, as far as, it's just another, mid-round quarterback, who knows what will work out. I mean, if you actually do your right homework on some of these guys, you can end up, landing something big. It's just the probabilities aren't nearly as high.
Yeah, with Jamie Newman, I think that what's so intriguing about him is anyone that was paying attention to draft Twitter or what people were saying about the draft is Jamie Newman was considered to be, a potential first round pick this year. And then obviously Georgia, or he opts out of playing in Georgia this year and decides to work on his path to the NFL. In the Senior Bowl, he did some good things, but really just the lack of the sample size. Small school guy, playing at Wake Forest before he played at Georgia. He kind of got screwed over by some things he couldn't really control. So you have to wonder that if he played this season, could he have been a first-round quarterback? Yeah, of course, but we just don't really know at this point. It's really going to come down to how comfortable they feel he is technically, I'm sure. What his, the reports his trainers have been giving, how comfortable they feel next year. But if we're talking about a guy that is going to go in the second round that has some, definitely some good film on him and a potential option, I definitely think that Jamie Newman's there. And we'll, next week we'll go over, more day 2 prospects, maybe even day 3 prospects. But for now, I'm thinking that the Bears are. I personally believe the Bears are going to draft a quarterback in the first round, not named Mac Jones. Reese, what do you think?
I'd say I'm at like a 50-50 chance right now on my mind.
Okay.
I really am. That's about where I am. And I know it's a very not really exciting statement. I think maybe I'd lean a little bit more towards your side. So maybe I'll go like a 55% just to take a side and not be a neutral and a boring. But I think that it's tight right now because I could really see them going for a tackle in the first round or Tooney, or I could see them taking a quarterback. So yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, and maybe it's more of just a hope on my side and seeing Dalton contract and being like, okay, well, this is going to be the year Dalton plays, and then there's going to be that transition player. But we'll see. Ultimately, draft night is going to be a really fun event for Bears fans because it's probably going to dictate how your life will be for the next 4 years or so. It'll let you know if the Bears will have their quarterback or not. Well, we'll still have to find that out as the season rolls on, but it'll at least give you kind of a view of this new look Bears franchise. This team is going to look completely different, and as much as it sucks to be in constant never knowing who your quarterback's going to be or who's going to be the head coach, whatever. The one thing that you can't say as a Bears fan is that it's ever boring. It's never boring. Yeah. There's always there's been constant change for the past 10 years or so. It's constant intrigue, and that's what's it's fun. The off season is really fun for Bears fans. A lot of other teams don't get that. A lot of teams don't get to be involved too much in free agency or in the draft or whatever because they're good. At least we have an interesting off season.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's always an interesting offseason with this team, and like you mentioned with the draft, make sure you guys are keeping it tuned in here. I'm sure Austin and I will try to put together some kind of live stream event for at least a day or two of the draft. I mean, I would love to do all 3, but that might be asking a lot of us, especially with we have other things going on, so we'll have to figure all that out. But certainly be looking towards us for everything about the draft and everything leading up to it. Off season is just getting started. Said this last podcast, can't say enough. has been an absolute crazy off season, and I appreciate all of y'all that are constantly tuning in, both on the podcast and watching our YouTube videos, supporting us and joining us along on the ride. And it's interaction with y'all throughout the whole process that really makes it great. And if you got anything other than that to say, Austin, I'll let you say it, but as it always goes, bear down.
Next year is going to be officially technically year 3, but really kind of year 2, considering the first year it wasn't that great of a podcast. So really this is technically year 3 of the podcast. At least season 3, I should say. So, it's going to be one for the making, and we're going to make the most out of it. And by the end of the season, don't you worry, we're going to be the most subscribed to Bears YouTube and podcast out there. So thank you guys so much, and bear down.
Bear down.